Hi, I'm Deborah Birnbaum with Gold Derby, and I've gathered two of our brilliant pundits together so that we can talk about what they think is going to happen in this year's race. I've got Wilson Morales and Matt Neglia. Thanks for joining me, guys.
It's good to be on.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you.
So, I want to find out what the secret is behind your brilliant punditry. So, what I want to know first is what's the secret behind your sauce? Like, what's the one thing you look for when you're doing your predictions? Matt, why don't you start?
I would say it's a combination of looking at all sources of data. So it's not just talking with voters, but it is also talking with fellow pundits and getting an idea for what they're thinking. It's also checking out message boards and getting an idea of like what the general public who follows this stuff also thinks. And then you kind of just put all three together along with trends of the past and where things you feel like are going based on recent wins and nominations. And that can tell you a lot about what might happen then in this current year. Obviously, we just went through a seismic shift with the Academy becoming more international. And that was a change that maybe took a year or two of adjustment. But I think now that we have seen a couple of years sample of that, it's pretty easy to tell what they will go for versus what they won't, maybe compared to the past where they would have gone for something wildly different.
And Wilson, what's your secret sauce? What's your secret formula?
Being a New Yorker, there's a combination of things. Obviously, there's watching these movies, but then when you're in New York, you go to a lot of events and you kind of read in the room, and there's a time period of when things go up and down. Like right now, the time periods where we, the press, we're writing as far as who we think is going to be there. And then, sometimes when you go to events, it's a matter of like, I never know who these Oscar voters are, but you hear what people talk about. And if they can talk to other, people who may be Oscar voters, that creates a shift. And so like we've seen, throughout the last few months, we've talked about like who are the top three. And then sometimes the box office can add somebody in or take somebody out. So by the time we hit December and you have the physical award shows, like, Gotham Awards, and then you have obviously the nominations coming out of Golden Globes and Critics' Choice, it starts narrowing down the field. So all the ones that you thought you wished for to get in, if they're not on the list, it's going to be a harder choice for them to get on it afterwards.
I like what you said about box office there, Wilson, because nobody wants to back a loser. So if you're perceived as a loser at the box office or even critically, nobody's going to want to throw their support usually behind that. And so, yes, I agree with you about the ebb and flows and how the general release of a film and its perception within the public eye will translate over to how voters will then perceive it as well.
That's a trend we've definitely seen a lot this season. A lot of contenders, would-be contenders, who come out the season not performed as well at the box office as they might have hoped. Can any of them rebound? What do you guys think?
I think so. I think depending on the box office, like for example, you're saying early on we're talking about Smash Machine, and they say okay, it didn't do well. It's The Rock, but I go, wait a minute, it's A24. Were we really thinking that movie was going to hit 20 million opening weekend because it had The Rock? No, it wasn't. A24 is not built that way. It's almost at this. It almost reminds me of the Weinstein era when they had all these big names, but the Weinsteins weren't built to have movies open up at a huge at the box office. So long as they have critical acclaim, and you can thank Netflix for creating the acclaim more important than the box office. They still have a shot if they're going out there and they're kissing the babies, and people like that when you're a superstar and you're going out there and letting yourselves to be to talk to regular individuals and who are voters who don't get a chance to come out and see you.
All right. All right. Before we get into this year's race, give me one pick from the past that you're proudest of. That was something that you think really stood out and shows you like that you've got your pulse on the Oscar voters.
One pick in the past,
Oh, man.
Prove your bona
Okay.
fides.
I mean, last year, I was very proud of No Other Land, I'm Still Here, Mikey Madison, called all of those. And, a lot of people got maybe two out of those three or even one out of the three in some cases. But I remember last year being very proud of a lot of choices that panned out pretty well. And that's the thing is that I don't tend to think about, oh, what I did like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I tend to think about what was like my most recent victory and kind of go from there because there's another victory right around the corner that will supplant that probably. So
For
It's
sure.
a, it's always weird because sometimes, within our group, no one runs away with the wins.
Yep.
Whoever wins by like one or two votes. So it's a question of like, which one did I get right that somebody's decided not to pick at the last minute? And you never know. When we're looking at the list, when we, as the awards go on, and you say to yourself, I had that one. And then there are times when I thought like I didn't do well, but then because we are grading on a curve, like wait a minute, that person had that one missed, and I go, wait a minute, by curve, even though I had five wrong, I still had the best, pick out of everybody else. So I couldn't say I know the ones that I wanted that got in that I decided not to pick. I think about the year of Andrea Riseborough when I really wanted to pick her, but then I didn't know how to pull out anybody from that list because Viola and Danielle were both SAG and BAFTA nominated. And usually when you get those, you're normally in for an Oscar. And I said, well, one of them is not going to get it, but I didn't think both of them weren't going to get it. You
Yeah.
know, so that
Although
was
Wilson, I got to say, as much as we're highly competitive and within a few points of each other, oh, only one of us was tied for number one last year. I'm just saying.
I
but
was waiting. It was
but
coming.
here's the thing, but that's for one race.
I
The
know.
question is, it's almost like F1. How many races do you won though?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. The heat's coming. All right, let's start with let's start with Best Picture. 10 slots, lots of contenders. I think there are a few that seem like definite locks. We've talked a lot about One Battle. We've talked a lot about Hamnet. What else is getting in there?
I
Sinners,
think Sinners is
Sinners for
in
sure.
sentimental value,
Marty
and
Supreme,
I think the fifth slot can go to either Marty Supreme or Wicked.
both of them.
Or one of the other. One is gonna fall into it or not. We don't know how Marty Supreme is gonna do well. Even though it's A24, we're not looking for a box office success. And even though the early talk is, oh, it's really good, it's got to be good enough to land that fifth spot. If not, if Wicked does bonzo numbers at the box office as expected, they could just get that fifth slot. And then once your slot is 6 to 10, you're just happy going to the race, even though you know you're not going to win.
Although there's a couple of other films in there, though, that could pick up like key victories, such as Netflix's Frankenstein. Looks like it's going to be a dominant craft player this year. Neon has It Was Just an Accident, which could be winning screenplay or international feature. Then you also have Searchlight. Never underestimate Searchlight to get a Best Picture nomination. And with Testament of Ann Lee, if they can secure Amanda Seyfried in Best Actress with the lead actress nomination, then a couple of crafts, all of a sudden that can add up to that 9th or 10th slot for them in that field. So I'm not putting it past them to get in there either.
You mentioned Fox Searchlight, but the sleeper could be Rental Family. It played well here at Savannah, and another sleeper that people are starting to talk about is Train Dreams.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
Tra-
love Train
Train
Dreams.
Dreams. All of a
Train.
sudden, from Sundance to now, it's the little engine that could. So I always tell Netflix, you have a lot of horses. Which is the horse you're gonna, that's gonna keep going? It's gonna be Frankenstein. It's gonna be Jay Kelly. I don't know if House of Dynamite has enough steam, and here comes Train Dreams. All of a sudden, they're starting to pick up some steam. That could be the one that they didn't see coming.
Not
How
you're
many
not just
films?
saying
How many
Steam
films
because it's
can
a train.
Netflix get into that top 10? Do
the
you think voters think that way?
No, I don't think they think that way, but I think that in terms of Netflix's campaigning power, they have more money than God. They have the ability to throw these lavish premieres and events and make people feel like they're part of the conversation with the amount of screenings that they put on for these films. And they just have a way of getting visibility on them. So compared to some other studios where they might struggle with that sort of thing, it stands to reason that between Jay Kelly, Frankenstein, and Train Dreams, they have three bona fide contenders. And there's not even, yeah, I mean, I guess there is a little bit of a chance, but between them and Neon, one of them this year might even get 3 slots in Best Picture, which we haven't seen since 2016.
What about Avatar? We haven't talked about Avatar.
Mm.
Do we give it a slot? Are
Have you
people
seen it yet,
waiting
Wilson?
for it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm hearing. I could be wrong, but I'm hearing Thanksgiving weekend that they'll start showing it early to some folks, and I think that's the last contender to be seen between all of us. And I think if you're James Cameron, it's the third film. You got to hit a home run. At the end of the day, like we're already talking, like what are the top five slots? So like it's not good enough for James Cameron to be top 10. He's got to be in it to win it. Getting in the slot in there is like doesn't when you're like slotted 8 or 9, you could be it was just an accident, and that's good for them. But if you're James Cameron, it's all about winning.
I have two mindsets on this. One is never doubt James Cameron, which many people have done, and he has managed to still make billions of dollars at the box office, get Best Picture nominations for his films, along with craft nominations. And with Avatar, we did see a dip from the first film to the second film, even though the advancement in the technology from the first to the second was so great. People, I think, had kind of mentally moved on a little bit. Still got 4 nominations, still got a visual effects win and a Best Picture nomination, but now, only a few years from The Way of Water, I'm beginning to wonder if this is craft nominations only, and there might be more passion for something else in Best Picture. If it is a home run, though, like you're saying, Wilson, or there are shocking developments that stay with audiences that really make it a true, genuine movie experience that has everybody buzzing, he could very easily probably get it in the 10 again.
I think you make a good point just because we have a lot of contenders. There's a lot of people, a lot of films vying for those 10 slots. The next question I'm going to throw out at you is going back to a point, Matt, that you brought at the top, that how international the voting body has gotten. We have a lot of strong international features. You mentioned Sentimental Value. You mentioned It Was Just an Accident. Those are 2 that feel pretty much like a lock for those 10. What about A Secret Agent? What about
No Other Choice?
No Other Choice. Thank you. Those are 2 really strong contenders too. Can they get in? How many international features is there room for in that top 10?
There's a lot of room. And this is a question I go back and forth on every single day. Because like I said, both Netflix and Neon have the ability to get 3 nominations in for Best Picture of this year. I think with Neon, between Secret Agent and No Other Choice as that third, my current guess today, and I know this is slightly unpopular because Park Chan-wook is everyone's favorite director and everybody wants to see him get recognized by the Academy, but I think The Secret Agent could start to come on strong towards the end. Wagner Moura has always been firmly in the Best Actor conversation. I think Kleber, in terms of like his direction of that film and what he does, that's something that the director's branch, I think, would be really drawn to. And couple that along with the possibility of an original screenplay nomination, which would be a surprise, but it's not unlikely. No Other Choice, what I worry about with that film in particular is that it's dark comedy. It's like absurdist comedy at times. And I just wonder if voters are going to take to it the same way that hardcore cinephiles and critics do.
My question is this: with BAFTA no longer in the picture this year, how important are the European awards?
I wouldn't say like they're like the be all end all. I would say that there's going to be a cumulative effect though between that, Golden Globe, and other international bodies that we hear about beforehand. I understand like BAFTA this year really is only screwing us over with our predictions process for nominations. Otherwise, when it comes to the winners and such, I think, they're still going to be pretty influential in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I'm not. Listen, without them aiding us, especially for some of these international choices, I do think if you have your head to the ground and you're paying attention to what voters are saying, like Wilson was saying earlier, you'll be able to get a good read on who the ponies are to back in this race.
One last film you haven't mentioned, Begonia. Does it make it into the top 10?
I don't see it. They're actually doing something right now, literally 10 minutes, a 5-minute walk from me.
I mean, it's not impossible. They could get a lone adapted screenplay nomination for Will Tracy. That's a very writerly film. It's a 2-hander. It's dealing with contemporary issues that have a lot of social relevance for people. It's funny. It also has these very shocking moments in it that audiences, I think, remember. And it's backed by these 2 great performances. I've always looked at it as a lone screenplay nominee, but think about this from this perspective. You got Nickel Boys, you've got Women Talking, you have all these Best Picture nominees that in recent years that can get in with just screenplay and nothing else. Past Lives is another one. So why couldn't Begonia be that film this year?
Well, I think you also have Emma Stone is in the conversation. And I think
there's
enough. I think granted, the fact that she's won 2 Oscars in the last 7 years, kind of rules her out because I don't know if anybody wants to give it 3 in 10 years.
Are you saying
Um,
that about Sean Penn?
he hasn't won. It's not going to be 3 in 10 years.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's not going to be 3 in 10 years. And I think with her performance, I don't know if Jesse cracks the list, but he's a contender just as well as Emma. So if you're going to get that film in, Matt is right. You can get screenplay and Emma. I don't think anything else.
I would love to see Jesse be that surprised though, because I think his performance in that movie is pretty amazing. And actor, I think, has more flexibility currently than actress does, because actress, I think, is way overcrowded at the moment. But then that's the only reason why I feel like Emma might just miss. I think she's like at number 6 or 7. It's nothing against her or the performance or anything. I just, to your point, Wilson, like I feel that if she's going to come back, in a two-hander where only one of them gets in and the other doesn't, I just like to say, you know what, cancel them both out, because how do you have one without the other?
All right, we'll see. All right, I'm going to move us on to the director race. I'm going to give you 3: PTA, Chloe, and Ryan Coogler. Any arguments there?
Yep.
All right, give me the next 2 slots. Wilson?
No, I don't think Ryan Coogler's happening.
You don't think Ryan Coogler's happening? Oh.
Nope.
I think there will be an uproar in the community if he doesn't get it.
Wow.
I'm sure there will be. There
I
tends
think,
to be every nomination morning for somebody.
but I do see a
All
path.
right, so
where
give
he
me your
doesn't
3
get it.
then. All right, but Wilson, you start.
I definitely would say Chloe, Ryan, PTA. Is it Joaquin from Sentimental Value?
Joaquin, yeah.
Joaquin. And then I would say the 5th one, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Josh Safdie from Marty Supreme.
We're very close, to be clear. We are close. I have Paul Thomas Anderson, Chloe Zhao, Josh Safdie. I do have Joachim Trier, although he's the one that I am considering dropping at the moment. And in my last slot, I have Jafar Panahi for It Was Just an Accident.
Yeah, he has Ryan out. Everybody assumes it's PTA and he's going to either ride the Chris Nolan train, like it's his due. And the narrative that they're really selling is that he's 11-time nominee without a win. But take that narrative out and say, okay, who else is out there? Chloe, obviously, if she gets in, she could be a 2-time winner. And then Ryan, of all of the Black directors, and I think there's 6 of them that ever been nominated, and if Ryan makes the nominee list, he would have the highest odds of actually winning, outside of Barry Jenkins not winning for Moonlight. Spike Lee was not going to win for BlacKkKlansman. Lee Daniels is not going to win for Precious. So Ryan actually has the narrative to actually win if they sell the whole, it's been nearly 100 years, no Black director has won. Sometimes it's all about how well you selling the narratives. You can get in and it can look good. I just remember, Spider-Man, we thought it was going to win for animated, but they kept selling the narrative of the Japanese director. It's his last movie, and that overwhelmed a lot of voters, and he actually won.
So, Matt, why do you think Ryan doesn't get in?
It's a feeling that I've just had since I saw the movie back in March. I worry that he is this year's Greta Gerwig or Denis Villeneuve, where we think he's safe, he gets in where he needs to get in throughout the season, and Sinners being a well-liked movie, big box office film, something tells me that the director's branch are going to think more outside the box and go for something that's not studio driven like Sinners is by Warner Brothers. I don't want to say populist, because that's what everybody's been like saying. Oh, they don't go for Joseph Kosinski doing Top Gun or John M. Chu doing Wicked. And to me, it's like Ryan Coogler is walking a fine line where it is a populist film, but to Wilson's point, yes, there is a narrative, and it's also an original piece of work, similar to what got Jordan Peele in, or Coralie Farjah, where sometimes the concept and the execution of it is so unique to voters that the director comes along with it. So I will admit, like, it's a very, I'm not like firm in this, to be clear. Like, I think there is a world where he still makes it, but if I smell any blood in the water, like if he were, well, I guess I'm not going to know because of BAFTA's announcement date this year, but if he did miss something along the way, I'd be like, oh, There it is. Like he's this year's Bradley Cooper. He's this year's Greta Gerwig. He's this year's Denis Villeneuve. It's like there's just been this ongoing list of directors every year where we think they're in, we think they're safe. The film is beloved, but the director's branch says not so fast. We're going to go for Secret Agent. You know what I mean? And it's like kind of an out of left field thing, but that is the trend that the director's branch has been on the last several years.
We have to see what the DGA does. Remember, it's like
Mhm.
how well, if he gets into DGA, and obviously we already know what their track record is, it's going to be very hard to get him off that list. I don't know if the DGA will go for Jafar, if it's the
Yeah.
only thing for the movie.
Yeah.
We know Sinners are going to get I don't know how you can nominate a lot of folks from Sinners in the crafts department and not the director.
Sure.
So that's the thing when you're talking about Joaquin and Jafar. Joaquin has a better odds because you're going to probably get performances nominated as well. With what it was just an accident, we're not talking about anybody else, just him and the film.
Yeah.
Is there
I
any
also
other
think.
director in the race that can play spoiler?
Oh yeah, no, the director's race this year is absolutely insane. I would say Guillermo del Toro is maybe a former winner that could find his way in there just because
He's working it.
Frankenstein, to Wilson's point, like about Sinners, Frankenstein's going to get all these craft nominations, and why not then recognize the director? It is also a passion project for him. There's been a huge narrative put out there backing him. So yeah, I
John
could
Chu.
see that.
John M. Chu, you figure if Wicked does the same numbers as before, and he's working it. I just saw him. He was like, I think on 60 Minutes. You don't have that many directors getting airtime on TV. And obviously they're setting up for the big premiere next week. If Wicked for Good does the numbers, he can get himself in there because it's a combination of both movies.
I think that John M. Chu's best day is he gets a DGA nomination, which he didn't get last time. That's as far as that goes, because I'm sorry, the director's branch is not going to nominate John M. Chu.
All right, let's move on to actress. I'm going to assume we're all going to spot Jessie Buckley and get her in.
Yes, that is a lock, as they say.
That is a lock. Renata Reinsve.
Stumbling. I'm getting nervous.
All right, Cynthia.
Once again, also
Making a face.
I'm a little nervous, but
all right.
Sure.
But then where do we take it from there?
It's up in the air. There's a lot of narratives that can be played for a lot of performances where it's only the performances. So right now, if you're going on paper, you're talking Jessie Buckley, Renata, that's 1, 2, Cynthia 3. That I think those are the highest odds of getting in. Then that leaves you with 2 slots, and that can go anywhere from Amanda Seyfried for The Testament of Anne Lee. You've got Rose Byrne, who's well liked, for her performance. That's true right there. If people see the movie and she can stay away from the off-screen topics, I say Sydney Sweeney.
No.
Don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it. And then there's Jennifer Lawrence.
No,
it's like
not happening.
Chase
there's a lot of
Infinity?
narratives.
No, Chase Infinity?
That could happen. If they love one battle and they are one battle down the line.
Yeah, if Chase Infinity gets in, I would see it as it's one battle to lose. I always assume there's going to be a coattail nomination. And there's a narrative for a lot of coattail nominations in the acting department. So like as we're going to continue to talk on, especially in the supporting race, where one film can get 2 slots in there.
The categories have been decided. It's not for us to decide who's in what category. They have decided for us.
That's true. I will say this: if both Rose Byrne and Amanda Seyfried get into actress this year, I will be beyond overjoyed because those are 2 of my favorite performances this year. But they're also in very challenging, complex films that I don't think voters are going to fully take to. And so if I had to choose one in terms of my own personal preference, but if I had to guess one, it would be Amanda. Because at least with Testament of Anne Lee, that's contending in a lot of other categories. Where with
bring up that point, right? Exactly.
With legs, it's Rose Byrne or bust. Unless if there's a huge shift in the precursors, and we start seeing that film getting singled out for other things, and that becomes a trend. But right now, it's just her and nothing else. And that, to me, God, I want her to get in so badly. But it reminds me so much of like Toni Collette in Hereditary and many other A24, actresses that like I wanted to see make it and couldn't, for just by the very nature of the type of film it is. But I will say this: if anybody watches that film, within the first 5 minutes, there's a close up on Rose Byrne's face, and she's giving this tearful monologue where it's like, that's her Oscar clip already. They've already seen it. They don't even have to watch the rest of the movie. So I would hope that she gets her due somehow and does have a good run. I will be overjoyed if she makes it into the final five. I'm very pessimistic.
Or Tessa Thompson for Hedda.
That would be great. That movie is really underrated.
Here's the thing: we haven't got to the supporting categories, but I think Nina Hoss is a real legitimate shot, and she could help Tessa.
She's campaigning a lot too.
She could help Tessa as opposed to Tessa helping Nina. And then the question is, I don't remember the Glenda Jackson performance. I know it's totally different, but you never know how, voters who remember that performance can look at Tessa's performance.
And just really quick too, because I want to add some context to my immediate dismissal of Sydney and Lawrence. For Sydney, it really does just come down to, I don't think she has enough industry respect yet. And I also don't think that film is anyone's favorite film of the year or anything like that. And with Jennifer Lawrence, she is amazing in Die My Love. I think it's one of her best performances. That is not an Academy movie. That is not a movie that you sit down for voters to watch and they go, oh yeah, like, I love that. They're going to be very put off by it. At least, like I said, at least with Rose Byrne, like she delivers the goods literally from scene one. And even if they turn it off, they will have gotten an idea of how good the performance is. Die My Love, you have to go through a lot. And I just don't think voters are going to be willing to do that. And once again, no other prospects other than Jennifer Lawrence. So that makes it difficult as well.
I think that's exactly the point. I think it's a question of like, how many films can Oscar voters watch? And
Right.
I think there will be a lot of films like One Battle, Sentimental Value, where you're going to tick a lot of boxes, hit a lot of categories. The sort of one performance, one category films are going to make it tougher, especially
And
when
Testament of Van Lee has that.
We've seen it before. Here's the thing, and I was just talking to somebody earlier today. I remember Roman J. Israel, where I did not. I know, but I'm saying, like, I didn't think he had a shot. I thought that was one of his weaker performances, but yet he got in. So when you are an Academy Award winner, you come in with certain points. That sometimes you never know with the voters whether or not they'll see the films, or they just may click on your name because they just know who you are as opposed to somebody who's not familiar.
Well, so what are you telling me, Julia Roberts?
Yeah. That's why I want to bring up Kate Hudson, just because there's been a narrative about it being 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Kate Hudson. Yeah, there's Kate Hudson. Obviously she's going to get an award at the Gotham Awards. And if she makes a compelling speech, the speech is everything. We saw what it did for Demi Moore.
Speech is everything. Yep. We've seen speeches turn campaigns around.
Speech is everything. Like if she can make a compelling speech. And I remember Lily Gladstone when she was at the Gotham Awards and she spoke, and I said, you know what? Don't let her get on too many podiums. She made that narrative of getting herself nominated in the Best Actress category when a lot of us thought she was more supporting.
Yeah, I think Kate Hudson is very in this, and there is a narrative behind her as somebody who has been nominated since 2000, and she's had a whole career since then where she's had ups and downs, but she has a lot of friends in this industry as well. And not calling this a comeback necessarily, but I think she is finally like out of that rom-com part of her career. And this, I think, is meant to be the opening of a new chapter, if you will. And so something tells me that with focus behind it, if the movie does well commercially, that's the key. It can't be a bomb. If it's another box office bomb and doesn't open well commercially, then I think that she might just get a regular, here's your Golden Globe nomination, and that might be it.
But it's focus features. It's not Universal. So it's like there's not a lot of expectations to make it a big box office hit.
True.
So there's a difference.
And Focus does have a few other movies, but
yes. Right. And Craig Brewer did get Terrence Howard a nomination.
Yeah, but how many years ago?
I'm going to move us on to Best Actor. There's an actor called Timothée Chalamet. We remember him from last year. I think he did a great job campaigning last year for this year's award, so I think we'll give him a slot. Leo for One Battle. You
Yep.
mentioned Wagner Bora, Michael
Yep.
B. Jordan. I think that's
Nope.
Nope, you're not going to give us. You're not giving us MBJ.
So Matt is anti-sinners. No
Anti-sinners. We
Ryan
established Matt
without
anti-sinners.
Ryan and Matt, you have nothing else.
All right, so Matt, give me your top 5 for Best Actor.
I know. Listen. I do
He
think
played
there is.
2 roles, Matt. 2 roles. 2
I
roles weren't
know.
enough.
I know. I think there is a world where he could very easily find his way in there. But I am a little nervous, given that I like the whole idea of Sinners for me comes down to how are Academy members going to perceive it. Are they going to see it as too horror? Are they going to see it as this slow burn for the first hour before it gets to its action-packed finale? Are they going to lose interest by that point? It remains to be seen, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people want to like talk about or admit because the movie has already proven to be so successful. But I have him at number 6 right now. If he gets in everywhere he needs to, then I will move him in my 5. My last 2 slots are Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, which I think is a very actor's performance, transformational, extremely charismatic, touches upon a range of emotions, very theater-like too. I just think that like SAG will likely vote for him, or are we calling it the actors now? But
It's
yeah.
Breaking news.
Yep. And the final slot is a bit of a surprise. This is like my wild card. This is kind of like something that I could see happening, but I can very easily swap him out for Michael. And that's Joel Edgerton for Train Dreams. I think he's somebody who has been...
I love that choice.
Right, because he's been working for many years, very solid. He's always consistent, always shows up and delivers. And I think if Train Dreams does pick up steam, like we were talking about earlier, he makes so much sense to come along with that film. And it's like at the right point in his career to be acknowledged finally, which he hasn't yet been. So,
and he very much is that film.
Yeah.
Wilson?
My choices, I say, it's Timothy, Leo, Michael, Wagner, and Ethan Hawke. And I think there's a path for Ethan to come over Timothy, because he's had a couple of nominations. He's always been close. But with Blue Moon, a lot of people in New York really love the performance. There's some that may be against the trickery that they did with the height and so forth, but it's a solid performance for him. I think with Michael playing, it's been a long time. I can't even recall, you guys will, if there's been a performance where one actor played 2 roles in the same film and got nominated. Matt, I don't know if you know that answer or not. I don't,
One actor played 2 roles in the same film?
In the same film, yeah.
And got nominated.
Oh
my God. Yeah, not off the top of my head. I would need a minute.
And then you got Leo, and then there's Timothy, at the same time, Timothy, everybody remembers Timothy's speech where he goes, I want to be one of the greats, but at the same time, he has to play at a certain level of politics. It just can't be about the performance. He's still young, and the Academy doesn't like to reward you when you're young. Look how long Leo had to wait. So I believe that if he doesn't win it this year, they're probably going to give him the Leo treatment. He's going to get it till he's 40 because he doesn't want to make films where he's seen as a tryhard.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go to Leo though. I think that the industry, my current theory is if it isn't Timothy, I do think that there will be this rally in the industry behind Ethan Hawke because it will just be one of those, it's his time, kind of like when Sandra Bullock won for The Blind Side. It's like, it blindsided all of us because the industry just decided it was her time. And sometimes they do that. Sometimes they take something that we're like underestimating and they just anoint it because it's someone that they really appreciate, really love, and really respect. And it just all kind of lays out perfectly. I will say for the record, Nicolas Cage adaptation was the last nominated dual performance.
There you go.
So it took me a minute, but yeah.
I knew you had it in you. We're just going to let it simmer for a while and it would come out.
I had to go on my Rolodex.
When you think about then Demi Moore would have won it last year if you go with the whole, it's her time. I used to always say, like, in the last 20 years, I don't think Demi had a role that was worthy of being talked about for an Oscar, whereas Ethan has.
But it wasn't so much. The reason why Demi did not get that is because The Substance did have passionate support, enough people to get it into Best Picture, but it didn't have broad support. That's the difference.
I want to ask about Jeremy Allen White and Springsteen because we haven't talked about that film a lot. Do you think how much did the box office hurt him in the film's chances and his
Oh,
chances, particularly the race?
pummeled.
It hurt.
Absolutely pummeled him to death.
Yeah. It's a studio film. Remember, if it was like an independent studio, it'd be different because you're not
Yeah.
relying on the box office. We're talking box office. Fox. I remember that movie, First Man, with Ryan Gosling, and how opening week it bombed at the box office, and it was DOA come Oscar talk. So like I think with this one, as much as Jeremy Allen White is a multiple award winner on SAG and Emmys, it just didn't translate on screen. If that movie had done numbers, and when you're talking musicals, you know, they want to see the numbers. You look to see what made Rami Malek so successful in winning his campaign because that movie was a juggernaut at the box office. Yeah.
And you mentioned Jesse Plemons earlier for Begonia. His performance definitely has gotten a lot of attention. Is he getting in? Or is there just not enough room for him?
I don't know if people see him as a lead actor. No. I don't think people see him as a lead actor. He's a good actor, but not so much as a lead. I don't think he's got the Philip Seymour Hoffman in him yet.
Oh, I think he definitely does. I just feel like this is a two-hander as opposed to a singular showcase role where he is definitively the only lead. And like I said, unless if you're going to nominate Emma as well to go along with him, I don't see how he makes it by himself. I would love to see it happen, as mentioned earlier. Like I would love to see him spoil and find a way in there because I think he's amazing in the film. But yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like, Edgerton to me just feels more like that is a broadly liked film that just needs enough eyeballs on it, but it's not a kind of movie that like offends anybody or anyone's put off by it because it's not, like Begonia, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Die My Love. Like these are very intense and so like abrasive films, by design. But you're going to alienate some voters, unfortunately, with those.
And I think there's a lot of love behind Train Dreams, and it's writing that narrative pretty well right now.
Yeah.
I think Joel will benefit for that for sure because he's very good film. All right, I want to move us on to the supporting races. Let's start with supporting actress and Ariana Grande. Let's not talk about what happened at the premiere, but thankfully she's okay. She's got her bodyguard, Cynthia Erivo, to take care of her, so everything is fine. Assuming she's a lock for a nomination?
Yes.
You're going to make more faces than that. You're going to smile.
No. I think from what I've heard, and I'm seeing it in a few days, I think she's a lock from what I've, those who have seen it have said about. And I think everything else.
Category is an example of like how many nominees can we get from any single film. So we've got the sentiment, we've got sentimental value, we've got one battle. How many people are getting in from those films?
I mean, I think Grande is definitely in. I've seen the film and she's pretty great in it. So I think she's 100% in. For one battle, I think Tiana Taylor is going to get in. I would love to see Regina Hall also be up there with her. But for now, I have just Tiana Taylor. Then I have both sentimental value ladies. But I don't know if I feel as confident in that as I did even a month ago. So there is some wiggle room here. And I know everybody is on the Amy Madigan hype train for Weapons, but guys, if I'm telling you that voters are going to be put off by these other movies that I've mentioned here, this one is like true all-out genre horror. They ain't going to go for this. I've heard people say over and over that she's got a legendary career, that this is, Ruth Gordon. Like, I've heard all these things that people have said, like, try to make this happen. And I'm telling you, I think it's an online thing. I don't see it manifesting. You know what I do see happening now? I could see, Wilson and I were actually just talking about this the other night. I think it's Gwyneth Paltrow from Marty Supreme.
Wow. Interesting. Wilson, take it.
I was saying, like, earlier I said there's going to be a coattail nomination. The question is who gets it. So we know Ariana's going to be in. And then there's somebody from sentimental value. The question, who gets in? I think Ingrid's got the stronger performance.
Yeah.
But Fanny got some goodwill from last year's Bob Dylan film that could get her over the top.
Yeah.
Then you have one battle after another. You got Tiana and Regina. Regina will be more of a respectful nomination over though Tiana has the stronger performance. Then I'm thinking about Marty Supreme. Odessa in my opinion, is stronger than Gwyneth Paltrow. And
Agreed.
then, but Gwyneth could get in. I think about what happened with Belfast, where everybody, all of us had Katrina Balfe in, but Judi Dench got the nomination. You know, and then you look back to Fablemans. We all thought Paul Dano was going to get it, but it was Judd Hirsch. You know, so being in the game long enough can get you in over someone who's not familiar with. You know, so like when you think about Odessa, she's new, she's young, then nobody knows her work, and then there's Gwyneth Paltrow. You know, and then you wonder about how many of these Academy voters are actually seeing the movies, but they know the names. You know, who's going to start? I've always, you know, my dark horse is Nina Hoss. Get her in there, you know, and get her in, and she, you know, people remember her performance from Tar, you know, and so she's European, which will come in with the European vote. So there's a lot of factors and narratives that can come in for a lot of people. And then, you know, Sinners, if there's a gravy train, it could be Wunmi, you know, Wunmi Masaka, you know, if she gets in, you know, we never know. Remember a couple of years ago when Lakeith Stanfield got in, and no one saw that coming. You know, we knew Daniel was a lock. No one had Lakeith, not even myself. You know, he wasn't even in top 10.
He wasn't
You know?
campaigning supporting. That's why.
You know, and so like, yeah, and so you never know who's gonna fit in. And I'm trying to think, you know, if they like Hamnet, we're talking who's the one that plays the mom?
Emily Watson.
Emily Watson. You know, you never know how far he's gonna go. Like I said, there's a lot of room. It's a weak category which anybody can get in.
I don't know if I would say it's weak. I would just say that I would say it's top heavy, you know, like where any of the 7 or 8 names that you mentioned stand a chance to get in. There's even some on the outside. Like I said, there's certain people that I know that we're discounting, but they could find a way in, like Emily Blunt for Smashing Machine, or maybe Netflix makes a miracle happen with Zoe Dutch for Nouvelle Vague. You know, it's like right now we're in this very great spot right now where we haven't gotten official precursors yet. So really, we don't know much else because a lot of these films are still opening, and voters haven't even really started sitting down for the holidays and watching their screeners yet. So, you know, anything is possible. I guess this is my very long way of saying, yeah, sure, I have Amy Madigan still in the mix. I just don't believe in it, but I'm not completely discounting the possibility of anything happening at this time.
This is where we come into play. You know, like obviously as we're gonna get near Thanksgiving, and usually this is the time period when all of the good movies come out on your screener app. You know, so like if you're independent, you need to be seen right now. Because when folks are getting together for Thanksgiving, they're gonna want to see if they get it early enough, The Wicked, this, you know, the Marty Supremes, the big movies that have the big stars. All of those have, you know, Sinners is already out, One Battle's already out. And you know, obviously they're reading or watching what we're talking about until the Golden Globe nominations are announced.
This
Until
is where I
somebody
think our
wins.
value comes in as pundits to say, like, these are
Yes.
the performances that where we think deserve paying attention to. These are the performances that I think are worth watching. Because, like, to your point, it's not that the category is weak, it's that it's so spread out that there are so many performances worth highlighting. It just depends on which films you watch. So when we're saying when you watch these films, pay attention to these because these are worth it. But it's a lot. It's pretty deep. All right, I'm going to move us on to Best Supporting Actor, where we sort of have the same problem. Lots of films, lots of competing performances. Let's start with Sean Penn.
I mean, 100% getting
Let's start with
nominated for
Stellan
sure.
Skarsgård. Well, you're still weak on sentimental value. You're still
Listen.
you're getting soft on sentimental value.
I've been saying since May that Stellan was going to win because one of those, it's just his
just a
time.
performance. The movie's his.
I just think that I worry that it's too subtle, and Sean Penn's performance is so memorable and has all these little ticks to it. He might just run away with the season with the total number of critics wins, and that leads into CCA and Globe and SAG. But Stellan could win the BAFTA.
Yes.
And that is going to be the key ultimate race where if he wins that, then my guess is at 73 years old, never been nominated before. Wouldn't it be an amazing thing to see Stellan get his first win and what will likely be his only win? Sean Penn, he's won twice before. He has been nominated since Milk, which was in 2008. I don't feel like we need to do this, but at the same time, people love the character, people love the movie, and that is why he is ahead at the moment. My heart just lies with Stellan, even though my brain says Sean Penn.
That's always it, the heart versus the head.
Yep.
One of the things I've been loving watching lately is watching Benicio's surging campaign.
Yeah.
It's
Me,
just, isn't that fun? I
I
want
can
him to
see a
get out.
path. I can see a path where Benicio gets it and not Sean Penn.
Oh, wow.
What?
You know,
No,
Wait,
they
what?
both get it. No, they have to both get it.
you know,
That's true.
and that's what I mean by coattail. You can get Sean and Benicio in because they're both good. You
But
know,
you're saying you think Benicio can get in and Sean would miss?
No, they have to
because
both get in.
Sean's
Wilson.
character is a little bit too much, too over the top at times. You know,
That's why I
um,
think he's vulnerable to Stellan still.
it's a little too much, and there was some backlash, to his character from some people that I've talked to. And then there's Paul Mescal for Hamnet.
He's getting
You know,
in.
it's not just Buck, it's not just Jesse.
No,
And if
it's
there's a
both of
lot of
them.
love for Ethan Hawke, look out for Andrew Scott.
Oh, I'd love that. Oh, I would
Yes,
You
love to
know,
see
I
that
would
happen.
love that.
look out for Andrew Scott. If there's a lot of love for Ethan Hawke, look out for Andrew Scott.
How are we
So
feeling
like,
about still looking for his first nomination, Adam Sandler?
you know what? We forgot about that. Adam Sandler as well as Billy Crudup. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
Billy Crudup has one scene, but it's
But it's a
memorable.
scene.
It's a
So he's this
scene.
year's Judd Hirsch, is what you're telling me.
Hey, he's got but he's an Emmy Award winner. He's well liked in the community, and sometimes, like I said, those matter. Those are points because he got an acting grant that's seen your work on the small screen.
Mhm.
With Adam Sandler, he has to prove that, like, okay, you're good here. Let's not have another comedy film where it gets a zero rating or something like that. I think comedians make the best actors, and they want to see a level of consistency of you doing solid work. We know Robin Williams, boom, but he's done consistent, dramatic work. Well, it worked against Eddie Murphy. I think when Adam was talked about for Uncut Gems, I think his following movie was some sort of comedy that never registered on anybody's Richter scale. So we'll see.
Can Jacob Elordi ride the Frankenstein craft coattails to get in?
I want him to, but much like some other, my worry with Jacob is this. My honest to God worry is he hasn't been in the business long enough for enough people to like know him and have those connections. If they watch the movie, the performance alone is so good that might get him enough votes to get in. And if the film is very strong, which I presume it is,
Mhm.
it makes sense that he could then come along. But what holds me back is he's still very, young in his career. And I I just worry that, in this category, because there's also Delroy Lindo for
Yep, I was going to say
Sinners.
that.
Yeah, I mean, what
I was
makes
going to
more
ask Wilson that, not you, because I know how you feel about sinners.
but what makes more sense though, a guy who is an industry veteran who still has not been nominated, who has a huge IOU for Defy Bloods, or the guy that was in the Kissing Booth movies who all of a sudden is proving to the world that he is this great actor between this, Euphoria, and a few other things. I think they're going to make him wait.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it all depends on how well you're out there campaigning, and whether or not, when you're like this mega star, and we both live in New York and LA, it's about when you're being seen, and you have to work harder when you're younger, and like you don't have enough work that they've seen as voters. So, but you're seen as a mega star, and so people want to come out, and so you need to come out and, as we say, kiss the babies and say hi to them, and you never know what goes on. Like I said, there's a lot of coattail nominations. There's a lot of love for Frankenstein. He could get in. If there's a lot of love for Sinners, there's Delroy Lindo. There's a lot of nominations that can come out of respect. Let's not sleep. Is Hugh Jackman campaigning for supporting or for lead?
He's going to be lead.
You know, so a lot of it depends. If you're a studio film and you do well at the box office, that could propel you. Or let's think about what's the guy from Wicked, Jonathan
Jonathan Bailey.
Bailey. He got a SAG nomination last year. So the question is, if he's good enough, does it propel him this time to get an Oscar nomination?
We'll see.
You know,
All right. I told you we'd be done in half an hour, and I clearly lied. So there you have that. Did not predict that one very well. So I'm going to leave you with one last question. Give me one other race that you're going to be paying attention to. One craft race, something below the line, or something we haven't discussed already that you're going to be looking at.
Oh, international feature is a bloodbath this year. Like that category is giving me nightmares. And some days I want to just throw my hands up and say, you know what? Neon is getting nominated for all 5 slots. Then that's that. But then, we were talking about this last night. My colleague and I, we were saying how, well, you don't want to have a lineup of 5 Cannes movies. So there has to be something else, a Venice title or something to throw in there to kind of mix things up. And so I'm still toying around with all my options. And that is a category where it's like every single day I have like a different combination, because we're so spoiled this year with international cinema. And we're seeing them obviously get recognized in all the other categories, even some that we mentioned here today. So that's really great. But yeah, that category, I think all the way up until nomination morning, will haunt me every day.
I'm thinking about the song category. We all know K-pop Golden is getting in. The question is, does Wicked get 2 songs in? Does
No.
Sinners get 2 songs in?
No.
I've seen Train Dreams.
Diane Warren gets in though.
Diane Warren. If Diane Warren does not get in, then it's open sesame.
If Diane Warren does not get in, it will be a miracle.
But here's the thing, though. This is this, Matt. This is the year where her name can actually be on the ballot. So there's a difference now. Before, when she got nominated last year for the Tyler Perry film, all you saw was the song and the film. You didn't know it was Diane that wrote it. So no one's paying attention. This time, you got I just watched Miley Cyrus's song from Zootopia, too. And then you've got Nick Cave, written by Bryce Dressler for Train Dreams. If Train Dreams takes off, expect the song to get in there. So and then like I said, there's a lot of coattail nominations. Which film can get 2 songs in? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I listen, I'm not going to rule it past the possibility of a film getting 2, because they're 2 very strong movie, Sinners and Wicked. But this is where also you need to look out for like the Sarah Bareilles song from the documentary Come See Me in the Good Light. Like you have to like really think outside the box and ask yourself, what is this year's Elton John? You know what I mean? And so that's the way I'm kind of approaching this category now, where I'm like, all right, we have like kind of our default 5. And I think you mentioned all of them there, Wilson. But now I'm starting to ask, okay, well, what's the spoiler? What's the thing that kind of comes out of nowhere to disrupt this 5,
All right. Well, thank you both so much. I think we're all hopefully still talking to each other, but I really appreciate your insight and your predictions and look forward to doing this again soon. Thank you both.
Thank
Thanks.
you.